More than 1,000 people have lost their lives in devastating floods and landslides across parts of Indonesia, Sri Lanka and Thailand. Rescue efforts are continuing in some of the most difficult conditions. The death toll in Indonesia alone has surpassed 500. Nearly as many are missing. The provinces of North and West Sumatra and Aceh are among the worst affected. Indonesia is using its military to get supplies into those areas. Bridges and roads have been washed away or blocked by landslides, making it difficult to reach some of the victims. Relief centres have been overwhelmed with people looking for help. In Sri Lanka, the losses and damage are the worst to hit the country since the devastating 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. At least 334 people have died in devastating floods triggered by a cyclone. The Air Force is dropping fuel to people stranded by floodwaters. And the president says this has been the most difficult rescue operation in the country's history. In the capital, Colombo, dozens of people are trapped after a river spilled its banks. Here's Minelle Fernandez on the rescue efforts there.
This is what the scene looks like in Colombo, the northern part of Colombo, with this sort of main road in the city of Kadewala more than 8 foot underwater. If you see in the far distance are actually residents of these areas braving those muddy floodwaters and choosing to swim in it. One actually hesitates to talk about what they're letting themselves in for. But right across the road you can see the shop fronts, all the different traders. There are auto traders, there's a baby clothing shop and things like that, but all under 8 foot of water, with the waters definitely having seeped into the shop fronts. So just the sheer scale of damage must be quite serious. Now, we are with a military relief and rescue team from the army. If you look at the gentleman right across and this one here, they've been basically on the water since 6:30 this morning. They've been doing one run for taking cooked food to people stranded either in these offices or in houses in the surrounding areas that are sort of locked by the water. But they're also taking water. They're looking at people that want to go back to dry land. We were with a group that had a little baby who was sick, and the mother was in tears when she was carrying her to take her to dry land and get her to hospital. I was telling you about food. If you just look over here, these are the kind of boxes with the food packets. Now it's coming close to lunchtime, and this is again another delivery that the military is doing. But the sheer scale is something that is really something that the authorities are trying to take stock. We have a team from Japan helping to do damage assessments, but it's very early stages yet. President Anukumara Dissanayake addressed the nation yesterday saying that this is some of the worst natural disasters seen and the recovery is going to be massive. He's appealed for foreign aid and they're really hoping that they will get the help to do that. Minelle Fernandez, Al Jazeera, Kadewala in Colombo.
Minelle Fernandez is live for us in that flooded Sri Lankan capital, Colombo. And first, though, we're going to head over to the worst affected nation of Indonesia and speak to Jessica Washington. She's in North Tapanuli. That's in North Sumatra. So, Jessica, first of all, take us through what's happening with the challenge of emergency crews trying to clear the roads and reach some of those isolated areas.
So, Sami, as we made our way to North Tapanuli, we saw some of the challenges that rescue workers are facing in reaching communities in need. As we made our way to this area, we saw landslides on every corner. I mean, I've covered natural disasters and landslides before. Usually, in most situations, there's sort of an area where those landslides are contained. What we saw as we made our way here is that landslides had basically affected all the villages that we saw as we made our way into this area. I'm here at a church in this area where people are seeking shelter, people whose houses have been destroyed, who've lost their livelihoods. And behind me, the audience can see, I'll just ask my cameraman to zoom in, you can see some soldiers working there. They are trying to find some of the missing people. Around 20 people in this village alone are confirmed dead. The death toll, of course, going up as rescuers are able to access more and more areas. Certainly as we are here on the ground, we are getting a sense of the dire need, not only in North Sumatra, in West Sumatra as well, and in Aceh. There are still some areas where rescuers have not been able to access because of blockages on the road, because of these areas are quite isolated and quite remote. That is, of course, the key priority, getting to those areas, getting aid to people in need. As we've seen aid being delivered to people in this area, you get a sense of the desperation. They crowd around the trucks trying to get food, water, medicine, all the essential supplies. Certainly a sense of a community that is struggling at this moment. And we've seen basically the landslides. It's not as if the situation is over. We see that there are still some fresh landslides happening in some areas. Certainly a community coming to terms with the scale of this crisis. And at this moment, around 20,000 emergency personnel deployed to help communities in need, including from the military as well, trying to access those communities in desperate need.
And Jessica, we know that hundreds of people are missing. You mentioned some of them behind you. How much of a window are authorities saying they have to try and find those people?
Well, for the people that authorities are searching for behind me, they are essentially confirmed to already be deceased. That sort of golden window of opportunity of finding survivors becomes increasingly difficult beyond the point of 72 hours. It has been a week of intense rainfall, landslides for this area. So the chances of finding survivors at this moment does remain slim. There is an expectation that the death toll will continue to rise as rescuers reach the areas that they weren't able to reach before. So certainly a sense that the full scale of this tragedy is yet to be realized. Communications in many areas, including where we are, it was difficult to get signal to connect to be able to speak with you. Communications remain patchy. And so with the understanding that some areas are yet to be accessed and that people are yet to be able to put out the extent of damage in their communities, we do understand that perhaps in the coming days we will get a clearer sense of the scale of this disaster.
All right, let's thank Jessica Washington there. Let's take it to Minelle Fernandez joining us from Colombo. And earlier we saw you reporting from Colombo. Just talk us through the search and rescue efforts for the missing there. Is there still hope of finding them alive?
Well, to be quite honest, in terms of the central parts of the country where, like Jessica said, there's been a lot of landslides, mud, and the worst of those landslides are now a few days behind us. So the chances of still finding survivors under those huge walls of mud and sludge is relatively faint. But as we said, it's an ongoing story. There are more and more landslides that we are hearing being reported. So it is on a case-by-case basis. But here, where I am down in Colombo, it's all about sort of relief efforts. You can probably see over my shoulder this way, you can see some of the waters. This isn't the worst of it. It's actually across the other side, where earlier we went actually with the army on a boat, and that's more about assisting people who are trapped and things like that, Sammy.
Minelle, the government's asking for international help. Is it getting it?
It is. There have been mechanisms that have been announced by the government. It is very much a coordinated effort led by the President's office with the Prime Minister, the Foreign Ministry, the disaster management authorities. We're seeing what appears to be a coordinated effort with a lot of stakeholders being woven into the teams, and that brings confidence. We have seen sort of international bank accounts being put out publicly. We've heard the friendly governments have announced sort of aid packages. We've seen India already flying in aid flights with supplies. They've sent in an aircraft carrier with some helicopters for rescue missions. There are other countries that have also offered aid, either in the form of cash donations or sending in supplies. We're also hearing that Japan is sending in a team to help assess obviously the damage, a huge challenge for authorities, for Sri Lanka, because this is very much something that has hit at the heart of infrastructure, at the very sort of foundations of a country and how it runs. So they are very keen to rebuild, and it's going to be a slow and painstaking process.
All right, thanks so much, Minelle Fernandez there.
Don't miss out. Get the full picture. Subscribe to Al Jazeera for reliable news, expert insight. Like, share, stay ahead.